Hi, we are back. Nikhil Nagaraj, born in 1990 in Bangalore, is a sound designer and engineer and musician. His interest explores the amalgamation between electronic and acoustic music, combining traditional Indian music styles with contemporary classical and electronic concepts. In his compositions and transformations with spatial audio to create immersive experience through the use of sensors and 3D soundscapes. And he will talk about a short journey about his role as a sound designer in the experimental performance industry, using 3D to create hallucinating experiences with sound in various, sometimes non-traditional spaces. Welcome, Nikhil. How are
Thank you,
you?
Jakob. I'm doing good. Thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction.
Yeah, I know about you. Felix told me he met you in 2017 when he was in Bangalore, and you were like working first time together, and then you came here to residency to the Wisp Laboratory, and we met there in 2019, first time when you were here, making all the sound stuff, also managing it with Felix together, the whole installation, and yeah. Uh, I hope you're fine. I'm really curious about your project and to get more know about it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, it was really in Bangalore. I think when I first met Felix. I think in 2017 he was hosting a 3D sound workshop, and at that time the concept was not so new, but it was also a bit. I was not really into 3D sound at that point, and this kind of gave me a little a boost into learning what the experience in 3D sound could be. And it was, I must say, it was a really eye-opening experience sometimes when you're actually in the room and experiencing this yourself. um, yeah, and I became quite interested in the whole concept of 3D sound, and started exploring more in depth and about perception and psychoacoustics, and how that could influence the compositions that I do with my work and my role as a sound designer. Um, yeah, I work as a sound designer mostly for theater performances here in Bangalore and around India, and sometimes wherever the production goes. So my office is literally the rehearsal room or the theater for a number of weeks, and my office keeps traveling every time there's a production. And personally, I find that part exciting, mostly because you are always most times for me, I'm always in non-traditional spaces, and this gives me an opportunity to use 3D sound in a way to probably enhance the architecture of the space itself and use the room as the instrument, by not fighting with the interact by not fighting with the room, but by being friends with them. How can this my background as an audio engineer kind of helps in this way. So my experience yeah my it's on things like phase and DSP, where I'm able to calculate things about the acoustics, kind of helps me to place speakers in certain spaces or certain holes in the sound system, which could add or enhance the experience, probably in just a certain part of the auditorium and not the entire thing. So I primarily work in theater sound and dance performances, which also use these kind of techniques. Um, Over the years, I've had to customize some solutions for some theater productions which travel and tour, mostly because they are on very tight schedules when they're touring and doing multiple cities in multiple shows. Most times during a single day, you might do about 4 shows, and you don't have all the time to set up and reset. So having a custom program here really makes sense, especially sometimes in productions that I work on, we are a very small team and we might not be able to afford to fly with a sound person. So somebody else might have to take over the role of operating the sound. So having it as seamless and as less technical as possible really helps in that sense for me. So yeah, that is. I'd also like to keep today's talk a bit less technical and kind of showcase my journey and what it is to be a sound designer or a composer or a sound engineer using 3D sound here in Bangalore, India.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Also, I really love to you work with theater and performance and dancers, because this is a field what I really love to make more in the future, to have it, also to think about it, how it would be to use it, this technology, tracking technology, 3D audio for workshops with children, to have this immersive experience with sound and movements. Yeah, that would be great to go deeper into this topic. And you prepared now a performance, a performance. Yeah, that would be great. No, a lecture. So
Yeah,
if you like, you can just share your screen.
basically, I think I'd want to just speak through it because the pictures are just to support what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I'm just anyway going to share my screen. But yeah,
We will
just
see
wanted to let
you.
you. Just a
So
moment. I hope you can see this.
yeah.
Okay. So this was one of the productions that I worked on. I think after I was introduced to 3D sound and I got a bit more involved and being able to have more confidence in composing in 3D, which is not necessarily the easiest thing to to do, especially when you are always used to expecting sound from the front, and this is what the audience expects as well. So this was a production that we worked on in a town called Jaipur in India. So we were here for about 6 to 8 weeks working on this production in the theater, and we had access to a 6 channel sound system. It was the play was made for an audience sitting in 360 degrees, so it kind of helped already by the way it was designed, and this kind of so it helps to bring the whole production team very early on with you and with your designs, so they are also accustomed to where your speakers are placed um, in terms of how you could place your speakers and all that things. And for me, I think working with stage managers here was one of the key points because they always knew what was going to happen. And some of few of the performances, we also had a lot of radio microphones, which created a little bit of more of a trouble. So having a huge sound system with a lot of radio microphones has its own problems, but effectively managing it was quite important. And with the whole production, I think it really came together to showcase this play in a immersive format. Next picture I just want to show was one of the rendering systems I had developed for one of the productions.
I just thought about to just maybe interrupt you with a question, if it would be
Sure.
okay. So, when you're talking about a 360 environment, where the performance is in the middle of the room, and how is your experience sitting as the sound designer and operator just on the side?
Yeah, yeah, it was not very easy. I must say for sure. But it came with its own challenges. I kind of solved them by having multiple measurement microphones throughout the room and kind of averaging the responses of this to get a general frequency response of the room in what's actually might be happening. But you still cannot predict what happens because of the multiple room modes that get excited because of such the speakers playing at high volumes and resonating many of these resonating many of these room modes. Um, so measurement microphones helped in certain instances, but like I said, few of the shows we also did not use any microphones on the actors. This had its own challenges and advantages. The big advantage was being you could actually track the person with your own ears by hearing them move from across the stage without using any technology. You know, uh, just the acoustics of where they are, you're able to know. It adds a bit more complication once you start using tracking and everything. We did not use any tracking for these shows, but uh, having the measurement microphones was sometimes more helpful to kind of gauge what was happening in the room. And I also had a couple of down mixes to help me down, a stereo down mix with two speakers in front of me to just for as a reference, and also a binaural down mix simultaneously happening with the 6 channels mixed down. So this helped me sort of understand what was happening in the room, but not entirely, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, so this was one of the rendering systems that I developed for a production. It has 24 inputs and 24 outputs. We were not using all 24, but the maximum I think we went to was about 18 speakers and about 14 inputs, which were being spatialized at any point. Um, so the unique part of this program is I didn't develop or I didn't write the program. It's kind of built in Max in a very rudimentary way, just to because it was also done very quickly. But it has multiple abilities to able to record trajectories and have two-dimensional maps. So the maps might not necessarily represent the actual speakers in the room, but they might be other representations of how you see the sound moving through the room itself. So the panning between this is calculated by using trisets. So you use 3 speakers and you uh, take the amplitude between them, and you take this. I might be wrong here because it's been a long time since I did this, but you kind of take the square root of the amplitude, and which kind of then gives you where you are in the triset. So it's kind of like amplitude panning in some sense, where you increase two of the speakers or one of the speakers depending on where your object is being panned. So this you then take and you amplify it over a larger space. So which then gives you the ability to have these maps or load these maps. So this program you can have 2 maps. So you're also able to crossfade between 2 different kinds of soundscapes or 2 different kinds of system designs altogether in real time in during the show. So this was all done to um, do real time work, and the computer was quite powerful for this one. You're able to store maps. You're able to store trajectories that you can later recall at a certain point during the show. So you could program cue lists. You could program at fade times and fade out times, target times. So this was done. The cue list you could program by linking it via OSC to a program such as Q Lab, which is a much more theatrical based queuing software, which is through which people are much more used to using QLab than someone using Max or an interface that I've made. So accessibility was one of the key things when sometimes when I uh, think of designing something very customized for some of the programs, so some of the productions as well.
So the rendering software here is tool you created, or you just can where can we find it?
So the core objects of this is called the MIAP software, which was based off the LCS system, which Meyer Sound created, I think, in the mid 90s, if I'm not wrong. So this was also so the theory of it remains the same. The theory of the triset of speakers remains the same, and this is a very different spatialization concept from ambisonics or wave field synthesis or any of the other formats that we're used to. So technically, this is a format of itself in that sense, which is mostly used, as I know, in theme parks or larger productions such as Disney musicals or something that a Cirque du Soleil production, something that's needs a lot more systems. And the way you buy the system is you buy it in different modules from Meyer Sound itself. So you have the rendering system, and then you have the I/O system, and then you have the system where you can create the cue stacks and everything. And it comes with an environment itself that's called as a space map. So the core of the core code of it is not necessarily mine, but it has been made available in Max, and uh, basically that has been like an outlet for me to build more customized software that is more adaptable and not very intimidating when somebody sees it, because I think when somebody sees LCS or space map, it's very easy to get intimidated or do the wrong thing, especially when you're not used to operating sound on a regular basis.
Yeah, and when you first time just looking for a tutorial or something like this, and I can imagine that such a patch was a better beginning. And so you also teach people in using this patch?
It depends on the production, but there is like a small training session that I take for the operator itself, depending on his or her expertise already. Sometimes they are completely new, and I might have to start from the scratch. Sometimes they're used to operating sound, but not necessarily know how to what to look out for or what to kind of do if things go wrong, or have a contingency plan sometimes, because in theater I think you always have to have a plan B, a plan A, plan B, and a plan C. And most times it's important to have the backup in the back of your head. And sometimes people are used to completely how this works, and it's really a breeze at that time. I just have to hand over the show file, and they just know what to do. And sometimes it takes a couple of phone calls or a couple of just a small, take them through the cues or take them through the story of the play, and they instantly understand what they have to do. So it's a hit or a miss, I must say.
Yeah, I can imagine, and this you used in the project you showed you before.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. So I can go on to the next slide here. This is so the space maps itself you create in you do not create them in Max, but you create them in the space map editor software, which is the Meyer Sound software, which is freely available on the Meyer Sound website. You export them into an XML file, which you are then able to import them into the Max patch, and it just loads up as it is. So you're able to use it. Has multiple ways in which you can interact with the space map itself by using different kinds of I would say, I mean, I don't want to make this about space maps itself, because that's another topic by its own. But you can have multiple points which denote multiple speakers or subwoofers or a combination of speakers. So you're then able to fly the sound in real time in space using just the trajectory. This is the way you create the space map, and then you export and then import into the max patch. Um, a lot of the things comes with creating a sonic image for the audience that kind of complements the visual side, because most times you are telling a parallel story that complements the visual side. You're not trying to do some abstract thing. You have a direction in which you want to go. At least that's how I would prefer to work. And with experimental theater, sometimes it's okay to not be yeah, it's okay to do something abstract and get away with it. So I try to have create different sonic images using the 3D sound system itself to sometimes create an immersive experience, not throughout the piece, but sometimes only when you need it, like for certain sound effects or certain scenes that really need to uplift, or I'm basically looking to enhance the visual side, not all the time, but at certain times. So these are the different sonic images I'm able to create by the placement of these speakers. A traditional flat sonic image where everything just comes from the front. Um, I mean, this considering the it's a proscenium theater, where the audience is on one side and the stage is in front of you. How do you create an immersive experience for that? Using localized speakers to play back sound effects sometimes, and just when you really need it, have the omnipotent speaker to overwhelm the audience when you really need it. And sometimes you just want to create an immersive experience that is not overwhelming and sometimes eerie. It comes in handy at those points. So creating these sonic images at different points of the production is what I kind of go for, and have a composition in playing with the architecture of the space itself. Yeah, that's primarily the intention with which I try to approach these things.
Yeah, that's
Um,
a really inspiring picture, because there are many of this theaters also in Germany, but you could never imagine making something there in this classical way of how
yeah.
was it built with the audience. Um, yeah, I've it's really inspiring.
So yeah, I really like to go into the architecture of the building itself and see what's the material of the walls and how high the ceilings are and what's the width of the audience area and what the stage height and the size and depth and everything is. And I generally start by taking measurements if I'm able to visit the venue, if the venue is in the city that I live, or if I'm there a few days before. Taking measurements really helps me in identifying what I'm against, and I try to take or try to get the CAD files or the files and try to approach this as a traditional system designer would, to see what, because I also want most of the audience to experience the play how I intend it to. I know there will be certain people who are closer to the speaker and certain people who are not so close to the speaker, but what I'm aiming for is at least 80% of the audience to experience the way I intend to. So, designing a system that complements this system and the sound design becomes challenging in that sense, especially when you're using radio microphones where you're not where where spatialization might not be the primary objective, but being able to hear the dialogue or being able to hear the story is the primary objective, because that's the experience, and that's why most of the people, our audience, are there, are not to hear how the reverb on the snare or how lovely the EQ on the snare is, but to actually know what's the actors and experience the story of the play. So yeah, I try to not take away from that experience and try to be as seamless as possible in providing that experience to the audience by having the most transparent system design in which they can experience this, I suppose. So yeah, having all these measurements and files really help in preparing for these and placement of speakers. Sometimes in India, at least, you are allowed to place them somewhere. Sometimes you're not. Sometimes they also have restrictions on whether or not you can use microphones in the space, um, because of the management, because of the acoustics of the space itself, and of the size of the space, where you might not necessarily need microphones. Many times it's also the rigging points in the space, where you might not have rigging points above the audience, um, because most times you're sharing rigging points, or you're sharing the truss system with other departments, such as set design or lighting department. And if you're sharing trussing, you're also sharing weight. So you always have to fight for space here, and it's fun, but it's also challenging, I think. And sometimes this is what keeps me going back. I'm kind of addicted to it, I suppose. Yeah, so various CAD drawings. This one is from a quadraphonic system with a subwoofer. Actually, this is a cardioid subwoofer here on the top, which is placed in a stack of three, with the middle one facing in the back, to create to create less reflections to the back wall. Because as you can see, the space itself is not very big. It's about 12 meter by 12 meter, and and within this there is the audience space, and within this is also the performance space. So your performance space is sometimes about 6 to 8 meter. um, yeah, 6 meter about 8 meter, that something along those lines. And it's really, you have to really fight for space in these scenarios. And having these very precise speaker placements and very precise tuning of the systems to where you want to point them at helps you to provide maximum spatialization to the maximum amount of people. And yeah, this is something I realized as I was working with more productions. And yeah.
Yeah, so you can just have a smaller number of speakers and maybe have the same effect, and it's like more
Exactly.
this quality and
Yeah.
quantity thing.
Yeah, and this is where ambisonics becomes helpful, because you don't really need to mix down again, and you're able to just go
Yeah.
down from you're able to swap different orders. And this show, I think this was worked on, was third order ambisonics with 16 channels, but here I'm able to down mix it to the first order. Yeah. This was done in Maya Sound System software. And yeah, this is a really great software to kind of predict measurements, even if you're not able to visit the venue itself, by just inputting the architectural drawings that you get from the venue.
Yeah, and how is it with the material in the which is built in the venue? I don't know, wood or stone, or do you
Yeah,
have information about that, or you could just call there and ask about how the building is made?
yeah. Most times I also get photographs of the building, of the space inside, so I'm able to see if it's brick or if it's cement. Or most times the floor is made of wood, the stage. So this has a bit of resonance to it, and sometimes there is also a bit of height to the stage, whereas the rest of the audience sitting area might be a bit lower down. But the walls in India are generally made of concrete or brick. So I'm able to apply this in the software itself. And the software has kind of a limitation, or at least the version I was using has a limitation, where you have to calculate separately by using the section view and the plan view. You have to kind of do two measurements to calculate what's going on in the height. That's just the trick of this program. But I think the program itself, there has a new version where you can import 3D drawings, and you're able to fully view a 3D map of uh, these polar patterns of what the interaction of the speakers. So yeah, it's, you can input the material of of the venue here, and most times I kind of call and check, and I also get photographs.
Yeah. And I just have a look on my watch, and I just thought about speaking with you also about the relation to the artist. But yeah, let's go further here at this point because this is really interesting currently.
Yeah, this is just a photograph of another show, a 3D sound concert, which I also have another photograph which I will share in a bit. A cue list for the concert where I recall different states, different trajectories for the space map itself, which then spatialize different instruments. This was a concert done with 6 speakers and 2 subwoofers. It's 2 artists playing Indian folk music with an audience in the center. So, and the the performers are sitting here, as this is the stage, and the audience would be sitting in this area. Uh, yeah, these are 2 entries to the auditorium, and this is basically this sound field was calculated again in the Meyer sound software, where you will do precisely space these speakers according to your calculations. Yeah, I mean, this is just a photograph to show the the way I calculate and program the cue list. Um, I briefly want to also share some of the projects that I have done myself, along with other artists, sometimes using 3D sound. Um, uh, One of the first projects that I did was with a German artist here in Bangalore called Benjamin Briggs, where it was an exhibition with a lot of artists, and we we went to the west coast of India with a couple of fishermen deep into the waters of the Arabian Sea for about, I think, about 12 hours, filming these fishermen and experiencing the life of these fishermen, and just seeing how food actually comes to the city that where to Bangalore basically. Bangalore, if people are not familiar with it, it's a landlocked city in South India. There's the sea is about 300 kilometers on either sides, west and east, and uh, a lot of the food itself is imported from various parts of South India or various smaller towns in Bangalore. So with this installation, we kind of traced where different food and flowers and different things come to where where the city market is. And it was really an exciting experience because I was living in Bangalore for about 25 years, and I didn't know many things, and it was really inspiring for me to see that, where the fish comes from and how it stays fresh. And because it's not easy to travel, because you have to get through mountains, and India sometimes the roads are not great, and the monsoons are pretty heavy, and it's not easy to get across from
Yeah, and
one town to another.
300 kilometers can be a long trip.
Yeah, but it happens every day, and discovering this process and discovering the way this happened was really great. So we presented this on a 65-inch 4K LED TV um, uh, at a gallery here in Bangalore. I have a small picture here in which it was presented. Uh, it was presented in the end with quadraphonic. There's only 2 speakers here at the moment, but there are 2 more in the back. Um, it was presented on the roof. We had a bunch of people just come and have a good time here. So there was exhibitions happening all throughout the building, and people could just walk through it, and this was happening all the way on the roof. And yeah, just an experience that Bangalore needed at that point, I feel. So another project here later on that I did, I think you might recognize, is about a Wisp Lab from 2018, where I was. It was a privilege to be a part, and a pleasure to be a part of this, where I met really wonderful people, and also had a nice ending to it with a performance at the Wisp Lab with Felix and many people. And yeah, this is I just want to share this photograph because it was a nice experience for me.
Yeah, and also remember Matthias, I guess he or
Yes,
Mathieu. He made the 3D room. He
yes,
mapped the whole room. Was really great.
yeah. And Aurelia made the 3D sound. I mean, the 360 video rendering system,
Ah, yeah.
and he worked on it for days. And yeah, it was great. It came together. So this was the concert that I was speaking about, which was the 6-speaker concert with 2 artists singing folk music. It was called the Threshold. It was done in a space called Shunya in Bangalore, which was one of the few places where it's big enough to kind of do big enough and also easy to work with to do kind of these kind of events. And it was a live concert with with the works with microphones and everything, and the it the performance itself were not used to the technology, and it was a challenge for them to uh, think of how their concert could be experienced in 3D, because sometimes it's not easy for me as an engineer to say things non-technically. I could it's easier for me to explain in technical terms than it is to explain in normal terms. And yeah, so you kind of develop these skills of being able to uh, making it as simple as possible to the people that that are experiencing this, so they are able to work with you. And we're not fighting to speak the same language. We already know the language that we want to speak. So yeah, this is kind of like the way that I do it, at least.
Yeah, I guess it's a small transition between how do you explain your feeling when you're an artist and how to translate it to the technical input.
Yeah, I think this kind of comes across in my compositions as well. I try to make it as simple as possible. If I'm trying to tell a story, I'm just trying to tell a story. I try not to beat around the bush too much. So yeah, so moving on, another recent a project that we did was shooting in 360 with a show called Songs of Sleep. So this is performed by 2 artists based in Bangalore, Akash and Deepti. They sing lullabies from across India, which is just 2 voices. And we recorded this in using a 360 camera and first order ambisonics, and also using spot microphones. So we are then able to uh, reproduce this in high quality. So what we are trying to do here, probably this year, is to create an on-demand streaming platform which plays back 360 episodes and concerts, which we are planning to record with musicians around India. So yeah, this is one of the starting projects, which which I think was very exciting.
Yeah, maybe this is a good point where we have to finish because we're already talking 40 minutes and I guess Victor is waiting. But yeah, I thought about the thing that all your works when you're working with theater and performance is all temporary. So you have it's really hard to document works like this, and I guess this would be a great way to have more of your works also online, what people can experience and have more of your works. I see you more as in this way as an artist, then you're working within these productions as the guy who make also composition and sound design, but is really responsible for the technical stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most times as just myself doing all the roles.
Yeah, yeah. So where is it already online, this piece, or where
Not
we
yet.
will find it on your homepage soon, or?
Most of the compositions, my theater compositions, are available. I have a Spotify page, which I can share the link to. Um, and you can find most of the theater compositions there, which are mixed down as much as possible in stereo or binaural.
Yeah.
The 360 video of Sounds of Sleep is still being edited at the moment. Yeah, like you said, most of the work that I do is concerts or live experiences, so they're much better if they're experienced live. And
Yeah.
yeah, COVID is kind of changing that, I suppose, where we are exploring new ways to engage with audience, but still with immersive sound. And yeah, I too am, exploring a lot of things like this. For example, how do you stream immersive audio online? The high quality immersive audio online is still a challenge sometimes.
Yeah. Uh, we had this topic before with Zoom and
Yeah,
yeah, the workarounds there. And yeah, thank you on this point, Nikhil. I
thank you,
really love
Jakob.
to see more of your slides, and maybe you can share a few of them too. Or do you have some documentation of your projects also online?
Yeah, it's all on the website. I'm
Yeah,
just
great.
going to drop it maybe in the chat. Is that a good way to
Yeah,
do?
or we would just put it on
Yeah,
our website.
I can share the link to, yeah, you guys.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and this was really exciting for me to share my work with
Yeah,
all you
and
people.
yeah, I hope Felix will get to you soon and you can make the project together. Good luck with the next project
Yes,
with Felix.
thank you so much.